I wake up every morning just crying, thinking this is not going to be what's going to happen every single day. It's just so hard to get through it.
Chris Watt's story is often told as if his darkness began the moment Shannon disappeared, but the truth started long before that August morning. It began quietly, subtly, in places only he knew. Long before the TV cameras, long before the porch interviews, there were cracks, small, almost invisible, forming in the life he carefully displayed to the world. Chris had always been the quiet one. Soft-spoken. Polite. The kind of person people described as nice, simply because they couldn't think of anything else. But quiet doesn't always mean kind, and politeness can sometimes be a mask held up for so long it becomes a second skin. Underneath that mask, something uneasy was brewing. It wasn't rage, not yet. It wasn't violence, not yet. It was something more dangerous, resentment mixed with a longing for escape. In the beginning, he didn't see it as darkness. He saw it as possibility. A different life. A different version of himself. A version that didn't have responsibilities tugging at him from every direction. If you're watching this on Nightfall Detectives, take a second to like and subscribe, because understanding what happened here means looking far beyond the crime itself. It means looking at the moments no one else paid attention to. Those moments started years before 2018. Small decisions. Quiet frustrations. A pattern of avoidance that built a man who never confronted his problems, only hid from them. Every time life demanded something of him, he shrank a little more inside himself, until the man the world saw was barely connected to the man living in the shadows. And while Shannon built their life with confidence and energy, Chris drifted further into a silence that wasn't peaceful at all. It was the beginning of an inner storm, one he would never learn how to control. If you're still watching, share this episode so others can follow the story from its true beginning, because this darkness didn't start with a crime. It started with a man quietly unraveling, long before anyone realized. Chris had always been the calm one, the man who rarely raised his voice, who smiled politely at neighbors, who blended into the background so seamlessly that people barely noticed when he entered or left a room. But behind that soft-spoken exterior, something quieter, and far more troubling, had begun to take shape long before Shannon or the girls ever came into his life. Those who knew him growing up described him as shy, withdrawn, even sweet. But there is a fine line between quiet and concealed, and Chris lived entirely on the hidden side of that divide. He never challenged, never confronted, never expressed anger, as if every frustration was being stored somewhere deep inside an emotional vault that no one else could access. Over time, that vault became a pressure chamber. He learned early how to bury discomfort, conflicts at home, uneasy relationships, moments where he felt overlooked or unheard. Instead of dealing with them, he folded those feelings neatly and tucked them away. And the world mistook repression for kindness. As you listen, take a brief moment to like this video and subscribe to Nightfall Detectives. It helps us continue unraveling the shadows behind cases like this one. Now, let's step back into the story. When Chris met Shannon, she brought energy, direction, and certainty, qualities he lacked but admired. To friends, they looked perfectly matched, her confidence balanced by his quiet steadiness. But beneath that surface, their relationship began to echo the same dynamic that defined Chris's life. He said yes to everything while feeling everything else in silence. And silence is where his darkness grew. Not suddenly. Not explosively. Slowly. Invisibly. Like a fault line, shifting beneath a house no one realizes is unstable, until the day everything comes crashing down.
Tell me about his childhood. Did he play sports? Was he in scouts? What kinds of things did
Yes,
he
he
do?
played sports. He played sports from the time he was 5 years old up until he was 17. And he was in basketball, he was in baseball, he was in football, and loved NASCAR. He and his dad went to the NASCAR races all the time. Loved sports, and he was a good kid. Had two best friends, and that's who he grew up with, and still are friends with them today. And there's nothing that would have predicted any of this could have ever happened.
Yeah.
Nothing in his childhood at all. I would have never in a million years thought something like this could happen to him at all.
You didn't see things like him getting into fights? Or...
No fighting. He was quiet, and he got along with people, and he didn't start anything, and he was a perfect teenager, tell you the truth. He did not even rebel. He wanted to go to NASCAR Tech. We made that possible for him.
By the time Chris and Shannon settled in Frederick, Colorado, the cracks beneath the surface had already begun to widen. To the outside world, they looked like the polished portrait of a young American family: two beautiful daughters, a new home, and carefully curated social media posts that radiated joy. But behind those perfect angles was a growing distance that neither camera lenses nor smiling emojis could hide. And if you're still with me on this journey, don't forget to subscribe to Nightfall Detectives, because stories like this deserve to be told with every shadow exposed. Shannon, already dealing with health challenges, threw herself into online work, building a digital presence that demanded constant engagement. Chris, once shy but attentive, gradually drifted into silence. He found pockets of escape in the gym, in his truck, in moments where no one needed anything from him. Slowly, the emotional tether between husband and wife stretched thin, so thin it was almost transparent. By early 2018, their communication had turned into rehearsed exchanges, more like lines in a play than spontaneous conversation. She sensed it, even if she couldn't fully name it. He felt it, even if he refused to admit it. The tragedies of August did not blossom overnight. They were seeded long before, in moments of resentment left unspoken and emotional needs pushed aside. As summer approached, Chris discovered a version of himself he had never been before, or perhaps one he had kept hidden. A version driven by secrecy, impulsive desire, and a hunger for reinvention. This was the point where his internal compass stopped pointing north. And as the world around him stayed bright and predictable, something inside him slipped into darkness. If this chapter pulled you deeper into the unraveling, make sure to like this video so Nightfall Detectives can continue bringing the truth to light. The weeks leading up to August felt strangely hollow, as though Chris was moving through his life like an actor who had forgotten his lines. To the outside world, he still wore the calm, easygoing mask that had defined him for so long. Neighbors waved. Co-workers joked with him. Even Shannon, who sensed something slipping through the cracks, never imagined how deep the rupture had become. But inside Chris, the darkness he had once kept contained, barely, was beginning to thread itself into every moment of his day. The affair, the secrecy, the pressure of money, the constant feeling of drowning, these didn't create the monster, but they fed it, nurtured it, gave it permission to whisper louder. He started to view his life not as a collection of people who loved him, but as a set of walls closing in. Shannon's pregnancy, once a source of joy, became another weight he felt shackled to. He stopped seeing his daughters' faces as reminders of purpose, and instead as reminders of responsibility. This shift didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, slow enough that even he didn't recognize the version of himself forming in the shadows. Some nights he lay awake staring at the ceiling, imagining escape in ways he never dared speak aloud. He convinced himself that he was the victim, trapped, misunderstood, suffocating. And each time he leaned into that thought, the darker part of him grew bolder, more confident, more certain that the world owed him something. If you're still with us on this journey into the unraveling mind of Chris Watts, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Nightfall Detectives. It helps us bring more stories from the darkest corners of human behavior. Because the shadows inside Chris were no longer content to stay hidden, soon, they would demand to be fed.
What did he do after he finished school?
He worked at the dealership as a service technician and was making good money and loved it. He bought a toolbox and he started buying his tools and enjoyed it. He was doing well.
When and where did he meet Shanann?
They met and he liked her, she liked him, but it didn't, I don't think that was love at first sight or anything. They took a little while and I guess got to know each other and, dated. It was always a little strange that she always said a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like. Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
In the months after the murders, the truth about Chris Watts didn't fade into silence, it deepened. Investigators pored over phone records, interviews, financial statements, and every trace of his digital life. What emerged was not a moment of sudden madness, but a long, chilling decline. They discovered searches revealing a man obsessed with starting over, a man who had convinced himself that his family stood in the way of a fantasy. Friends who once saw him as quiet and obedient now wondered how they had missed the darkness growing behind his calm smile. As investigators confronted him with each new piece of evidence, the cracks in his polished facade widened. Chris, who once staged himself in front of news cameras crying crocodile tears, now sat in a cold interview room, face empty, as the weight of reality pressed against him. The more they asked, the more he unraveled. And in that unraveling, we saw the truth: this wasn't a crime born in one night. It was a final act in a story that had been quietly writing itself for years. Even the investigators, hardened by years of tragic cases, admitted this one haunted them. The gentle voices of Bella and Cece, captured in old home videos. Shanann's hopeful messages, saved in text threads. A family so full of life, undone by a growing void their father never revealed. And as the final confession was recorded, and Chris was led away to spend the rest of his life behind bars, the question remained: how does a man erase the people he once called his world? Stories like this remind us to stay aware, stay alert, and trust our instincts. And if you're still with us tonight, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Nightfall Detectives, and share it with someone who follows true crime stories like these. The darkness in this case didn't begin with the final act, and understanding that may be what helps prevent another tragedy.